You saw the title, didn't you? The world's largest penis belongs to, and immediately your mind went somewhere. Maybe you laughed. Maybe you rolled your eyes. Maybe you were curious. Who is it? Why is she talking about this? What does it even mean? That's the point. It caught your attention. It made you look. It made you think. Because even if we pretend we're above all that, the truth is, most of us are constantly measuring ourselves, each other. We measure success. We measure beauty. We measure money, status, intelligence, relationships, social media followers, waistlines, wrinkles, how much we've done, how far we've gone, how fast we got there. We measure what we're doing against what someone else is doing. We're constantly sizing up our lives based on what we think someone else has. And then we rank ourselves accordingly. Better than them, worse than them, behind, ahead, too late, not enough. It never stops. It's exhausting, and most of it's complete garbage. Here's the truth. You can't win a race you weren't born to run. You can't find peace trying to measure your worth with a ruler that was never designed for you. And yet, here we are, chasing validation, chasing approval, chasing some imaginary finish line where suddenly everything will click and we'll finally feel like we're enough. But you know what? The person who walks through life like they've got the world's largest penis, whether they actually do or not, is the person who stopped caring about the damn measurement in the first place. It's the person who no longer lets other people's opinions define them. It's the person who walks into the room not wondering if they belong, but knowing that they do, because they decided they do. It's the person who owns their story, owns their scars, owns their voice. The person who stopped waiting for permission to take up space. Confidence isn't a measurement, it's a decision. It's not earned by comparison, it's reclaimed when you stop needing to be anything other than fully yourself. We live in a world that's obsessed with more. More followers, more attention, more money, more validation, more proof that you matter. And every time you get more, it moves. The bar moves. The goalpost moves. The dopamine hit fades. And you're back to feeling like you're behind again. Measuring again. Comparing again. Shrinking again. So let me say this loud and clear. Nothing outside of you can give you what's already inside you. You don't need to measure up. You don't need to be the best. You don't need to be the biggest. You don't need to be proven. You just need to show up fully. You need to stop apologizing for existing. You need to stop second-guessing every decision. You need to stop believing the lie that you have to earn worthiness. You are worthy by default. By birth. No accomplishments necessary. The person walking around like they've got something huge going for them. That's not about ego. That's about freedom. That's someone who's free from the opinions of others. Free from the fear of judgment. Free from the exhausting mental checklist of, what do I need to be today to be acceptable to everyone else? They've stopped chasing perfection and started choosing authenticity. They know what they bring to the table, and they don't feel the need to prove it to anybody. They're not threatened by someone else winning. They're not diminished by someone else's success. Because they understand something most people don't, someone else's greatness doesn't take anything away from yours. That kind of confidence, that presence, that, I know who I am and I don't need your approval, energy. That's what this title is about. That's what real power feels like. Not arrogance, not ego, not loud, just solid, grounded, secure. It belongs to the person who shows up when they're scared, who speaks up when it's uncomfortable, who fails publicly and keeps going anyway. It belongs to the person who gets rejected and still shows up with their head held high. It belongs to the person who's done being quiet, done pretending, done fitting into a box, done playing a role they never chose in the first place. It belongs to the person who finally decided they don't need to shrink so someone else can feel big. They don't need to hide their light so someone else isn't intimidated by it. It belongs to the person who doesn't wait to feel ready. They get up, take the action, and build the confidence along the way. So if you're still wondering who it belongs to anyone bold enough to stop comparing, stop hiding, and start being unapologetically themselves. It belongs to the one who refuses to be defined by what they aren't and starts owning who they are. And guess what? That person can be you. Any day you decide to stop measuring and start showing up. Not when you're perfect, not when you've arrived, not when you've hit all your goals. Right now, flawed, messy, human, and enough. Because the truth is, that kind of presence, that kind of confidence, that kind of radical self-ownership, it's the biggest energy in the room, every time. We live in a world that thrives on measurement. Everything is ranked, rated, compared, reviewed. From the moment we're born, someone is measuring us, our weight, our height, the age we start walking, talking, reading. And as we grow up, the measurements only multiply. Grades, test scores, sports stats, popularity, salaries, relationship status, number of followers, how fast we've achieved what. We're conditioned to believe that if we're not the best, we're behind. If we're not first, we're failing. If we're not measuring up, we're somehow worth less. This mindset becomes so deeply ingrained that we carry it into every corner of our lives without realizing it. We scroll through social media and immediately compare our lives to someone else's highlight reel. We hear about a friend's promotion and suddenly feel behind in our own career. Someone loses weight, and now we feel like we haven't done enough. Someone else is married with 2 kids by 30, and we start thinking, am I doing life wrong? The habit of comparison is subtle, sneaky, and corrosive. It doesn't always scream at you, sometimes it whispers. Quiet doubts, tiny jabs, subtle shame. It says things like, why haven't you done that yet? They're younger than you and already there. You should be further along. And the worst part, most of the time, it's not even conscious. It just sits in the background, pulling your focus, draining your energy, and feeding your insecurity. But here's the truth. Comparison is not only unhelpful, it's unfair. You're measuring your reality against someone else's projection. You're comparing your behind the scenes to their carefully curated front of stage. And worse, you're using their path as a ruler for your journey. That's like planting an oak tree and then getting upset because it's not blooming like the cherry tree next to it. It's absurd. You're not supposed to grow the same way. You're not supposed to bloom on the same timeline. Every time you compare, you rob yourself of presence. You shift your attention from what you have to what you lack. You move from action to anxiety. You stop seeing your own strengths and start obsessing over someone else's. And in doing so, you shrink. You play small. You hold back. Because how could you possibly move forward when you're constantly being reminded that someone else is ahead? Comparison tricks you into believing life is a race, and everyone is competing on the same track. But life isn't a race. It's a path, and yours is unique. You weren't put here to copy someone else's script. You weren't meant to walk someone else's timeline. Your experiences, your lessons, your failures, your pace, they're yours. And they are not wrong just because they don't look like someone else's. When you stop measuring yourself against others, you start getting honest about what you want. You stop chasing goals that don't even matter to you. You stop performing and start living. You gain clarity, focus, and peace. Because now you're no longer trying to win a game that was never yours to play. You're just playing your game, your way. And don't confuse this with complacency. Choosing not to compare isn't about lowering your standards, it's about lifting your gaze. It's about focusing on growth, not competition. It's about looking inward instead of constantly looking around. You can admire someone without questioning your own worth. You can be inspired by others without feeling inferior. That's the shift. Comparison creates scarcity, the lie that there's only room for one person to win. But growth is abundant. There's enough success to go around. There's enough love, joy, purpose, fulfillment, not just for them, but for you too. So, if you're tired of feeling like you're never enough, if you're tired of constantly wondering where you rank, stop looking sideways. Start looking inward. The only person you should be measuring against is the person you were yesterday. The only timeline that matters is the one that aligns with your values, your vision, and your truth. You do not owe the world progress on anyone else's terms. You do not need to justify your pace, your process, or your path to anyone. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not losing. You are becoming, and becoming doesn't follow a straight line, a clock, or a scoreboard. Most people think confidence is something you earn. They think it's the result of success, that once you've achieved enough, proven enough, mastered enough, then you'll finally feel confident. Like it's a reward handed out at the end of some invisible checklist. Get good grades, land the job, lose the weight, make the money, get the approval, then you'll feel like you belong. Then you'll finally feel worthy of taking up space. But that's not how confidence works. Confidence isn't built at the finish line. It's built the moment you decide to stop waiting for permission. We're taught that confident people are confident because of what they have, their looks, their success, their titles, their charm. But confidence isn't a result of external achievement. It's a mindset. It's a choice you make, often in spite of your fear, in spite of your doubts, and in spite of the fact that you don't feel ready. The truth is, most confident people didn't start out that way. They didn't wait until they felt brave. They decided to act, even when they weren't. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the decision that your fear doesn't get to drive. It's waking up every day and choosing to show up anyway. Choosing to speak when your voice shakes. Choosing to stand tall when your knees want to buckle. Choosing to try again after you fail. Choosing to be seen when it would be easier to hide. That decision, to act in the face of discomfort, is where real confidence begins. If you only act when you feel ready, you'll spend your life on pause. Readiness is a myth. Nobody ever feels completely prepared to go after the big thing, take the risk, ask for what they want, or bet on themselves. But people who seem confident, they've learned to do it anyway. They don't wait for the nerves to disappear. They take action with the nerves. They step forward even while their mind is telling them all the reasons they shouldn't. Think about it. How many times have you not raised your hand, not sent the message, not asked the question, not taken the leap, because you thought you weren't ready, or good enough? And how many of those times did you later realize you could have done it? That it wasn't about ability at all, it was about self-belief. Confidence doesn't come from knowing you'll succeed. It comes from deciding you can handle it, whether it works out or not. It's trusting your resilience more than your perfection. It's trusting that if it gets messy, if you fall short, if people don't clap, you're still going to be okay. That you can figure it out. That you can try again. Confidence grows every time you choose courage over comfort. Every time you show up for yourself. Every time you follow through on something hard. It's built in the tiny, unglamorous moments. Getting out of bed when you don't want to, speaking honestly when it feels risky, doing the thing without a guarantee. The more often you choose action over avoidance, the more you start to believe in yourself. But here's the kicker. People think confidence comes first, then you act. In reality, action comes first, then the confidence follows. You do the thing scared. You survive it, and your brain takes note. I can do hard things. That's how the belief builds. Not from waiting, not from wishing, but from doing. This is why confidence isn't a measurement. You can't assign it a number. It's not a score you earn once you've racked up enough wins. Because even when you've succeeded, imposter syndrome can still creep in. Insecurity doesn't go away with achievement. In fact, it often grows right alongside it. The higher you go, the louder your doubt can get, unless you've built the habit of trusting yourself. So if you're looking around waiting to feel qualified, waiting to feel brave, waiting to feel like you belong in the room, stop. You're not going to feel ready. You're going to decide you're ready. And then you're going to act on that decision, again and again, until your brain catches up and says, hey, maybe I can do this after all. Confidence isn't found, it's created, by you, for you, in real time, through repetition and self-trust. We're living in a world obsessed with perfection. Flawless photos, curated content, polished resumes, spotless reputations. We are constantly fed images of lives that look effortless, people who seem untouchable, and standards that are, frankly, impossible to meet. And without realizing it, we start playing the game. We edit ourselves. We filter our personalities. We hide our doubts, our flaws, our failures. Because we think the more perfect we appear, the more we'll be accepted, respected, admired, loved. But the truth is, nobody connects with perfection. People connect with what's real. Authenticity beats perfection every time, not because it looks better, but because it feels better. It resonates. It creates trust. It invites people in. You don't fall in love with someone because they never make mistakes. You fall in love with someone because they're honest. Because they're human. Because they're willing to show you who they really are, without the mask. That's what makes someone magnetic, not their performance, but their presence. Perfection is a performance. It's a constant act, a role you're trying to play to meet everyone's expectations, often at the cost of your own sanity. It's exhausting, it's fragile, and it disconnects you from your truth. The more you chase being perfect, the further you drift from who you actually are. You second-guess your instincts. You censor your voice. You lose touch with your values, your creativity, your courage. You become a watered-down version of yourself, likable, maybe, but forgettable. Authenticity is the opposite of that. It's not about being loud or oversharing or trying to prove how real you are. It's about being aligned. It's about telling the truth, to yourself and others. It's about acting from a place of clarity, not fear. It's about choosing to be seen as you are, not as who you think they want you to be. And yes, authenticity is risky. It feels vulnerable, because once you stop pretending, people see the real you. That means you open yourself up to judgment, rejection, misunderstanding. But guess what? You also open yourself up to genuine connection. To people who get you, not the version of you that you polished and edited and packaged up to be more palatable. You find the ones who stay because of who you are, not because of who you perform to be. People can sense the difference. You know when someone is trying too hard. You know when someone is overly rehearsed or over-curated. It feels cold, distant, hard to trust. And you also know when someone is being honest. You know when someone's sharing from their heart. You lean in, you listen, you feel them. That's the power of authenticity. It invites others to drop their guard too. It creates space for truth, growth, and real leadership. In business, in relationships, in creative work, authenticity is the advantage. Perfection is fragile. It cracks under pressure. It avoids failure at all costs. But authenticity, that's resilience. That's courage. When you stop trying to be flawless, you give yourself permission to be whole. And when you operate from wholeness, you have nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and nothing to lose by being yourself. Ironically, the more perfect you try to be, the more people resist you. Perfection can be intimidating, even alienating. But authenticity is approachable. It says, me too. It says, I've been there. It says, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm still showing up. That kind of honesty builds loyalty, whether it's with clients, coworkers, friends, or followers. People will remember how you made them feel. They will remember your courage to be real. They'll respect your transparency, and they'll relate to your imperfection, because it reflects their own. Perfection is a moving target. It keeps changing. You'll never arrive. You'll always feel like you're falling short. But authenticity stays consistent. When you lead with truth, you don't have to keep up an act. You just keep being yourself. You keep evolving, learning, trying, failing, and showing up anyway. That's not weakness, that's leadership. Choosing authenticity is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. It's not always easy, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's where freedom lives. It's where connection happens. It's where your real power begins to show. Because when you drop the act, when you stop performing, when you just be, you step into a version of yourself that doesn't need approval to feel worthy. Most of us are taught, directly or indirectly, that worthiness is something we have to earn. That it's conditional. That it's based on performance, appearance, achievements, or approval. We grow up believing that in order to deserve love, respect, happiness, or even rest, we have to first prove ourselves. We have to hit the milestones. We have to work hard enough. Be nice enough. Be smart enough. Be successful enough. Only then, maybe, will we feel like we're finally enough. But that belief system is broken. It's built on scarcity and fear. It keeps you chasing something you already have, because the truth is, worthiness isn't something you achieve. It's something you're born with. It doesn't go up or down based on your performance. It's not something that gets revoked when you mess up or handed out when you win. It's inherent. It's non-negotiable. It's yours. Think about it. A baby isn't born unworthy. We don't look at a newborn and say, well, maybe once you speak 3 languages and lose 10 pounds, then we'll think you're valuable. No, we see that child as pure, whole, and worthy of love, care, and protection just as they are. And yet, somewhere along the way, we unlearn that truth. We start to attach our worth to how we perform, how we look, how we behave, what we produce, what other people think. We internalize this message from culture, school, family, media, from everywhere. That you are only as good as your last achievement. That your value is tied to how well you fit in, how much you hustle, how flawless you appear. And as a result, we begin to live in a constant state of proving, trying to earn what we already deserve by default. This creates a loop that never ends. You get the promotion, but now there's pressure to outperform. You get the validation, but now you're afraid of losing it. You hit the goal, but now the goalpost moves. No matter what you do, it never feels like enough, because you're trying to fill a hole that was never meant to be there in the first place. You're not actually trying to be successful, you're trying to feel worthy. But success can't give you that. Nothing outside of you can. When worthiness is conditional, it becomes fragile. It becomes a performance. It's something you constantly have to maintain and protect. But when you recognize that worthiness is inherent, everything changes. You no longer need to prove your value, you just start living it. You show up differently. You speak differently. You hold boundaries. You rest without guilt. You ask for what you need. You stop settling, because deep down, you know that your value is not up for negotiation. This doesn't mean you stop growing or trying or striving. It means you stop tying your identity to the outcome. You stop basing your self-worth on external metrics. You begin to operate from a place of awareness instead of lack. And when you do that, ironically, you become even more powerful. You take bigger risks. You're not paralyzed by failure. You're not driven by desperation or fear. You're driven by truth, by purpose, by clarity. You no longer need to overcompensate or prove your place at the table. You just take your seat. Not because you think you're better than anyone else, but because you know you're not less. You start owning your space. You stop hiding your voice. You realize that confidence doesn't come from your resume, your appearance, or your accomplishments, it comes from the deep, unwavering knowing that you are already enough. And when you live from that place, everything gets lighter. Your relationships improve, because you stop seeking constant validation. Your career shifts, because you're no longer performing, you're showing up fully. Your creativity expands, because you're not afraid of being judged. Your mental health improves, because you're not constantly beating yourself up for falling short of some impossible ideal. This doesn't mean you won't struggle. It doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. It doesn't mean you'll always feel confident. But it means that underneath all of that, your foundation is solid. You're not starting from a place of lack. You're starting from truth, from wholeness, from worthiness that can't be touched, because it was never up for debate.